Welcome to Working Posture. I'm speaking to you today by invitation of my very good friends at Swanmedsupply, who share my passion for looking after dentists and their posture. So let me introduce myself. I'm Dr. Penelope Jones. I'm from Australia, the country of beaches. This is a beautiful picture of the end of my street, so I'm very lucky. Now, I have been a practicing dentist for very, very many years, and that includes the last 25 years doing just endodontics. And I've also spent many years teaching in the medical and the dental faculties at Sydney University. So I am a wet-fingered dentist. I've worked in the surgery. I know what dentists go through. So early in my career, despite being very fit and agile, I actually started to develop a lot of pains and aches. You know, the sort of things that so many of you dentists and other dental staff experience. So rather than retire, because I was too young to retire, I decided that I needed to do something about it. And I was actually very, very lucky. I found a 4-year training in Melbourne University in Australia on human movement and learning, and also how to use neuroplasticity to retrain how we move. Now, the wonderful thing was that after the 4-year training, I had no more pain. So I thought, well, I need to share this with my colleagues. So that's when I started my Working Posture. I created it actually almost 30 years ago, and I've been helping dentists ever since. I started off actually working at the university with the undergraduates and also postgraduate people as well. And I resurrected quite a few careers. But now I'm actually teaching through the Australian Dental Association at the Centre for Professional Development. I've also spent time in the UK teaching in dental schools over there. I've also taught in Dubai, which is where I met Swanmedsupply. Now, the reason why we formed a partnership, as we've realised that there's two aspects to looking at the problems that dentists have, and two ways of solutions. And Swanmedsupply, they have the loops and they have the beautiful Sali chairs. But you can actually sit badly on a Sali chair, and you can actually, if you're not fitted properly, loops can actually be more damaging than anything. So we teamed up, and Working Posture actually helps you to utilize the sitting on the chair and the loops much, much better. So let's go back to the fact that we know as dentists, we end up with awful aches and pains, not just at work, but also outside of work. So it would be helpful if we could find out how and why these tight muscles are created. Well, actually, it's how we sit and all the other things that we're doing that cause the problem. Now, I'd like to speak to you about what posture actually means. A lot of people think that posture is a fixed position where once you get all the angles right, you can work like that all day. But that's totally wrong. That's not how our body works. It's not how our nervous system works. We were meant to move all day. And in fact, posture is not a static thing. You can't actually sit in the same position rigidly all day, because that's how you end up with really nasty tight muscles. So I want you to think beyond the old model of posture. Think in terms of the fact that our whole skeleton was built to be like a set of springs, and it has to be a dynamic thing. What happens is the nervous system spends all day continually adjusting us so that the force of the work that we're doing and gravity goes down through the bones. And this is much, much more physiological. Good posture is actually quite dynamic. It's a continual adjustment, as I said, throughout the day to try and align your skeleton. Because if your skeleton is aligned, as I said, the force goes down through the bones. Now, if you're out of alignment, what happens is the muscles get tight to try and bring them back to that beautiful alignment. That's how we end up getting all those tight muscles at the end of the day. So thinking in terms of sitting as a dynamic activity, it just brings up a whole new way of looking at how we do what we do. So what we need to do is ask the question, what pulls us out of alignment? Well, over the 30 years that I have been teaching this work, I have found 5 bad habits that create bad alignment and also tight muscles. Now, I'm only going to talk about 3 of them because this is a brief expose. So the first one is holding your breath. How are you aware of the fact when you do very precise work, or even when you think hard about things, you actually hold your breath? So when you look at how you do that, you have to tighten all the intercostal muscles, all those muscles in between the ribs. You also have to tighten your diaphragm. Now, what do you think that does if you're doing that all day? Imagine you're doing this. Imagine you did this all day with your hand. Can you imagine what would happen to the muscles of your hand? So imagine that you're doing that every time you hold your breath, which I can assure you is often during the day. What happens is that you get a distortion of the ribs. They get tighter. The spine gets tighter. You start to lose the curves and you lose your alignment. And what actually happens during the day is you can't expect that's not going to stretch to the rest of the body. So what happens is the tight muscles in your ribs and your diaphragm then start tightening the muscles in your pelvis, and they start tightening the muscles in your neck. So that's how you end up at the end of the day without even realizing that that's what you're doing. Now, the second bad habit is stooping forward to be able to see. Because we work in such a confined space, and because it's sometimes hard to see what we're doing because of that, unfortunately, there is a tendency to hunch forward. So can you see the difference in the alignment of the spine in green, which is ideal, and the alignment in the red, where the pelvis rolls back and you hunch forward to try and see better? We'll talk about what one needs to do for that later. And the 5th one is how we sit at work. So I'm going to show you these beautiful pictures, which is how we were born to sit. Beautiful alignment, very easy. And these people in the middle, they can sit like that for hours. And look at this beautiful Asian lady out in the fields. She's not sitting on anything, she's just squatting. And they can stay like that for ages. And they have beautiful alignment in their spine. Now, can you see a chair anywhere there? No. Because in fact, sitting in chairs is one of the most unhealthy things that we can do. We lose our alignment, we lose those beautiful springs, not just from the holding of your breath, not just from the stooping, but from the stupid things that we do when we're sitting. What we do is we sit like this. Now, to me, it even hurts just to look at it. And look at this way of sitting in the dental chair. So you can imagine how this is creating tight muscles everywhere. And I really worry about the young people later on in their life when they're sitting on the couch like this. Really bad. So let's look at these bad habits. The first one, which is holding your breath, well, that's a matter of awareness. But what about stooping to see forward? Well, what Swan provides are loops. You can also use a microscope as well. And this helps to bring the vision closer, so it magnifies it so that you don't have to stoop forward to see. Bad habits of how we sit at work. Well, I can't recommend highly enough this beautiful Sally chair. The Sally chair, which is it's very physiological. But as I said, if you don't have the loops properly set, and if you don't learn how to sit on the Sally chair, it's not going to help, is it? So we've got to go to the other part, and that is learning how to sit properly, learning how to use your body. So how do we address all of those tight muscles from our bad habits? Well, let's have a look at what you actually do. Just clasp your hands together like this. And you'll notice that you've got either one thumb on top or the other. Take your hands apart and interdigitate them again indifferently so that the other thumb is on top. Now you'll probably notice that that feels really weird. So what happens is, as you grow up, as you take on the bad habits, as you have accidents, you get tight muscles individually all over your body that form how the nervous system hangs you in space. And whether you have your right or your left thumb on top, every time you put your hands together, you do it the same way. That's how your nervous system works. So what we have to do is to try and find a way of going beyond that. And one of the things that I use that no other modality use is the beautiful neuroplasticity. So what is that? It's actually a way that we can change the way that your nervous system actually does all the movements. So how do we do that? Well, in Working Posture, we have lessons. We put you down on the floor sometimes. We have you in seats. And what we do is we take you through various gentle, soft movements and help you become aware of where the muscles are tight. Then we help you to generate new movement, different to the old patterns. And then we integrate that back into movements that you do every day. For instance, I have a lesson where I teach you how to turn. And then what I do is I put that lesson to imagining putting your seatbelt on. And that means almost like a post-hypnotic suggestion that every time you put your seatbelt on, you're going to do it. You're going to be reminded of the new way that you did in the lesson. So that's how Working Posture works. It's very, very interesting and very easy to do. So I'd be very, very happy now to take you through a short awareness through movement lesson. How would that be? Thank you.